Hello there, and welcome to the next episode of the Mindful Investor podcast. This is a situation room edition. I mean, we're all dealing with the coronavirus crisis, and look, we are being tested right now. Like, our company's mission and purpose in life is to create happy homes and healthy investments, and it's being put to the test. What we want to talk about today is how we are dealing with the crisis, and it's like developing on a daily basis. New information comes to light, so we adjust and try to sort of organize ourselves to be able to serve. Like, our key mission right now, or our key sort of path, is to be off service to both our residents and our owners, but everyone else who's serving rental housing community. And so it's in this challenging situation, we want to sort of showcase and make this episode about our residents. And we have a wonderful guest today. But first, let me just say hello to my co-host, Steve Rozenberg. Steve, how is your day going?
Hey, Alex. Busy. We'll say busy. Doing a lot of comms, a lot of conversations with people, both investors and other people in the industry. And you're right. This is a test for everyone, not just property management companies, but investors, patients, being at home, and families all kind of being bunched up. And it's a different time right now. This is an ever fast changing environment that nobody knows, which is probably, people aren't used to being unknowing of their future. And that's what we're at right now. Very nervous time. And I think the answer is it's okay to be nervous. It's not okay to make decisions out of emotions and fear, but let logic and data and good business practices prevail, which is what we're trying to do here at Mind. And I think it's important that people understand that there's multiple sides to this story, whether it's the owner, whether it's the contractors, whether it's the lenders, property managers, and the residents. And so I know on this episode, we're going to talk more about the residents and how to handle that, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know what to do. And to me, communication is the key, and being able to communicate what is going on, even if you don't know what is going on, is still communicating. And I think it's important that people realize that nobody has the answer, because nobody has ever gone down this road before. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to pass on this information as quickly as we can, which is why we're trying to bring experts in to the situation room and have these conversations with us to help give us some enlightenment into their world and how they're handling it.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to introduce our guest. But before I go there, like, one of our company values, I think there's three that come to mind very quickly. Just being mindful, just being like aware of what is going on and adjusting the tone, and really working hard to be of service and be entrepreneurial, which is, one door closes, the other door opens. So let's just be aware that that is a reality. And some of the best businesses in this universe, Earth, have been created based on times like these. And the third value I want to talk about is being an A player. And today's guest is like the embodiment of being an A player. Like, I think she is one of the best thinkers and leaders in the company. Gina Taylor, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for that. That was very nice of you. Thank you.
It's the truth. And so Gina is a senior director of resident services. And today's topic, we're just going to dig in and see, like, what is Mind doing to be compassionate, to be off service to our residents while maintaining that balance. Because our job, we have responsibility to the owners of the homes who are not fat cat landlords necessarily, right? Who, if they don't get the rent in, may default in their mortgages. So how do we manage that? So Gina, maybe you can introduce kind of like, what is your department, like, from the moment like you learned about this crisis, like how it developed and where are you today?
Right. So as soon as we learned about COVID-19, and it wasn't called COVID-19, right? When we first learned about it, it was called coronavirus. And as soon as it started to hit, we recognized very early that it was going to be something that was going to be big and that we needed to start strategically planning for that. And that would be, with move-ins, move-outs, anything like that, where the residents were going to be leaving their home or entering their home. And it really wasn't so much about the rent payment. It was more about the safety of the resident and how it was going to affect their everyday life. And then we soon learned that it was going to really affect them. And so we really just moved into strategic planning of how we can help the resident. And it's more about making sure that they have the services that they need and what we can do to help provide that for them in case of emergency, in case of elderly or disabled residents, how we can help them get the services from their local surroundings and government and things like that. So it's a couple of things that you guys said that really hit home and that we've been focusing on is not making those rash decisions, not focusing solely on when they're going to pay their rent, when they're going to move out, if they're scheduled to move out. We're really trying to and taking that human approach with all of our residents and helping them get through this because they're scared, and we understand that. One unique thing about my department is we're all remote, which in the past is and is a new thing for a lot of companies. Yeah. It's very unique, but we're finding that in this situation, it is perfect. We're able to continue to service our residents in the way that we always have, but probably better because we're there for them, whether they call, email, or whatever. It's the same level of service for them. But as I said before, we're really focused on their well-being over anything.
The one thing that, I'm in a task force that you're in as well. And so mine put together a task force that we meet, 3 times a week, and we do a stand-up every morning and just try to get a handle on this thing. And, mine is in 15 markets, right? Yep. Some of you listening may be individual landlords. Some of you may own property management companies, but mine is in 15 markets. That's quite significant responsibility to care for our, happy homes. Like Happy Homes is in focus right now. And Gina, behind you, there's a board that we discussed today. And the first word on this is elderly. Like, your team is doing like active outreach to our elderly residents to find out if they need any help. And like, tell me more about that. Like, that's pretty awesome.
So, a lot of the elderly residents or just some residents, they don't have access to internet, or they don't understand the internet, and they don't maybe have access or don't understand cell phones, and they're not able to look up services, or they're not able to find that help that they need. And whether it be anything, getting additional food, and they're shut into their homes, or, they want to pay their rent. Let's just say pay their rent. They're not able to do that. We're able to assist them with anything. We've partnered with Paylease, Zygo, who we go through rent. And we're taking on some of those fees for our residents to assist them so that they can pay their rent if they're able, through online, cash pay, through telephone, things like that. We're going to take those fees on. Most of the fees, some fees we aren't able to take on, but most of the fees we're able to take on for the resident so that they can take that off of their mind, and they're able to find other ways to pay rent if they are able. Another thing you mentioned is we are in a lot of markets. Again, ever-changing landscape. There's different programs for the residents where there's supplemental help from those different areas. We're keeping up on all of those things for the residents, and then we're offering that to them as well as they come in. But it's changing every day. Something different is coming a couple of times a day, lots of different markets. And we're not just looking at the state, we're looking at the county, federal, and even sometimes city. Things are different everywhere. So we have one person in my department that's dedicated to just keeping track of those different programs throughout those markets, cities, states, counties.
Yeah, as we launch the situation room, Steve, 1 second. I know you were like taking a breath to speak, but I'm faster, and let's just like put it on record. Okay?
I'll give it to you. You got this one.
As we are spinning up the situation room, which is going to be a spot on our website where all of this information will live, and we'll be able to share it outwardly with people. And we want to share some of the Mind's data as well. We want to be we want to be, helping the cause. And so right now, we have, about 60 people who are unable to pay rent out of, or at least having difficulty to pay rent out of about 8,000, which is, but come April 1st, we just don't know. But I wanted to turn to Steve and see, like, Steve, you dealt with hurricane, what was the hurricane specific, like the flood that happened in Houston?
That was Hurricane Harvey. I've been through several, but Hurricane Harvey was by far the most catastrophic.
If anybody's seasoned dealing with disaster, it's this young man right here.
Yeah.
So like, can you talk us a little bit about, like, how'd you guys, you had Empire Property Management, that was your company. Like, what's some of the things you've done?
Yeah. So, one of the things we realized is very quickly it was very much a divide and conquer situation where we took our operation, just like Mynd, we had a lot of people working remote. So one of the things we had to realize, number one, is our employees were also affected by the flood. So our employees we had employees that got flooded. So expecting them to come to work and work for our company when they were dealing with their own catastrophe was not reasonable. So we had to realize who was actually able to work and who was able to get out of their house, because this is a flood situation, or get to the office or get to somewhere, because we were managing at the time, I'm going to say about 700 properties. And one of our challenges were ascertaining which properties were good, which properties were flooded, which properties the tenants just abandoned because of the flood and nobody knows because the streets were flooded to get to. So we had to start categorizing everything, and we had to start realizing what is the situation and where are the residents. So we, within 4 days, probably walked several hundred properties, the team, and we called every single resident and every single owner. Are you okay? Do you need anything? And then we would find out about the safety and the habitability of the property. But first was the safety. And one thing I just want to digress here a little bit, because Gina said something that I think a lot of people in this situation naturally are focused on their property if they're an investor, and they're focused on what's going on with their situation. And it's a business. These investors are running a business when they have a property. However, they have a living, breathing person in that property. So there is someone who has an emotional attachment to the inside of that property that maybe is dealing with a lot more than just not getting your rent. And I think it's important. It's very hard to mix emotions and business in a stressful situation. It's almost like that's the making of an explosion, so to speak, because people want their rent and they're emotional. Residents want a place to live. They want to pay their rent. It's not like they asked for this to happen. They're a victim of this, and there are a residual effect. And I think it's important to understand that if you're an investor watching this, think of your resident and what they're going through, because there's two sides. There's really three sides. There's one side, the other side, and the real side. And I think it's important for people to realize that for me, going through the hurricane, there's emotions and there's things that are said and there's things that are done. But remember that never, ever make a business decision based on fear and emotion. It should always be on fact and data. If you want the resident to leave the property, first of all, where are they going to go? Number one, right. They don't want to leave. And who are you going to re-rent your property to? You could be putting yourself in a worse position by getting a vacant property that nobody can afford to rent now. And you got to make ready, and you got vacancy, and you've uprooted someone's life. As Gina said earlier, they didn't really do anything wrong. They didn't plan on not paying their rent on April 1st. So one of my questions I have for Gina is, what are you seeing the impact that this is having on our residents? I'm sure there's a lot of emotions, and I'm sure there's a lot of hand holding, and there's probably a lot of soothing conversations to the best of your ability, because Mynd doesn't own the property.
Right.
Legally, when it boils down to it, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the owner of the property.
Absolutely.
So, but with that being said, we have two clients. We have the resident and we have the owner. And it won't stand on one leg. If we just have the owner and no resident, it's not working, and vice versa. So what are some of the conversations you're having with the residents, and how is this impacting them?
Right. Right now, it's a lot of what if. What if I lose my job, or what if I don't get more hours? And so the conversations are this, that as of today, your rent will be due after this national emergency if you're unable to pay it, because evictions are banned or there's a moratorium. However, your rent will be due. I can't give you a set payment plan as of yet, because there are cities across the country, Portland, Los Angeles, cities like that are putting in set payment plans 4 to 6 months after either the courts open or the national emergency is over, that we can then allow residents to pay that rent back. So we're urging residents to, if you can, make payment plans, not payment plans, but make partial payments on your rent. We've opened up all partial payment abilities for residents to make any type of payment, because we're telling them your rent will be due, and we don't want you to be in a situation where after this is done, you're not able to get back on your feet, and then you are evicted because you're not able to pay your rent. So that's kind of the take that we're having with them, is make as many even small payments as you can towards your rent. And then once we know what's going to happen at the end of the day, federally or locally, depending on what's mandated, we'll look at payment plans for you.
And, one thing also, I remember, Alex, you'd asked about Hurricane Harvey. One of the things that we started after that was we started getting access, the ability to take credit card payments. So
Yes.
that was an option as well, that all of a sudden that opened up that window for people to say, yeah, it's not what I choose to do, but it's what I do, and I will do it. Now, the one thing I'll say, Alex, that a lot of people are going to realize as a result of this, whether you are a resident or you are an owner, investor, if you don't have the right strategy and you have overextended yourself, whether you're an investor and you don't have a contingency plan of extra capital set aside for this very thing, or you are a resident and maybe you're living outside of your means, you could be putting yourself. And again, it's hard to, you don't want to place blame right now, but it is a wake-up call, I think, for both sides to say, you know what, maybe it's a matter of living more within the means that you should be living in and not overextending yourself, because I think we've gotten all spoiled to the fact that we don't really have many catastrophes or disasters like this. So we kind of let those contingencies, even the 3 month, 6 month reserve of living, a lot of people don't have that because they sometimes live over their means or whatever the case may be. And this may be a good wake-up call for both sides to say, you know what, maybe I need to all be more fiscally responsible with my money, because an investor has a business and a resident probably has a family or other people depending on them to live in that property. And I think this is something that's going to change the face of how people allocate their money or think twice about, at least for a very long time to come.
We can hope.
We can hope.
We can hope. However, this is the one thing about America is, like, this stuff happens somewhere else.
Yes. Doesn't happen here.
Yep.
This is like the safety. Like I've immigrated here from another country, and a lot of stuff happened to me that I remember. But once I got here in 1995, like, stuff started happening somewhere else. Yeah. And I think this is a wake up call for a lot of us. And I hope people will take more like a different outlook towards overextending. Like, as a landlord, like, leveraging out, it's all like you can go on bigger pockets for them and tell people that you have 14 properties. But look, if right now, if these properties are 90% LTV, like if you're like pushing up value to loan, it's very likely we're going to have a lot of new deals out there from some of these people losing homes. And on the resident side, it's the same thing. So it's very, very true, Steve. I'm just so glad you brought this up. Maybe like if this influences one person to think about this a little bit differently, that'd be good. But also, like, there's also another aspect. Like, we are in US, we are being groomed to hustle. And I love that aspect, right? We're groomed to hustle. Sometimes hustle means taking risk. And sometimes risk can can bite you back. And this is one of those times. So, Gina, what are some of the things that, just shifting gears a little bit, some of the things that, because the email we sent, like, I'm going to set this up. Like, the email we sent to our residents, I sent to my wife. I'm like, hey, baby, are you thinking about these things? Like, like how to take care of glass range cooktop during, like, so it doesn't, it lasts longer. Like, what are some of the things that we've sent out to our residents to help them keep their homes safe and potentially reduce the maintenance cost, interruption right now?
Right. Yeah. The thing that residents need to think about is you don't want people coming into your home, right? So it could be different for every home. It could be, you have a baby and you don't want to be flushing wipes down the toilet, right? You don't want to do anything that could clog up those toilets where you have to have a plumber come in or we would send our maintenance guy in. You don't want to you don't want to put potato peels down your disposal. What you were saying about the range top, keep that clean. No baseball in the house. I know there's a lot of kids out of school that don't want to break a window, things like that. Look at, and we're sending out communication all the time to the residents about different things, which I think is, again, very important. Even though we're sending out all of that communication, I am getting personal emails with more questions. So they're hungry. Residents are hungry for information. And they want to know a lot of different things, but just diminish any chance that you're going to have someone come into your home. And again, that's going to be different for every home.
What are some of those questions, Gina? I'm just now you're getting me all curious.
One question was, it's really around my husband. I got an email from a woman in Reno today, very sweet. She's a first responder. And so she's working crazy hours, but she's not getting paid any more money. And her husband works in Reno on the Strip, and of course, he's gone. His job's gone.
Yeah.
And they have money for 30 days, and that's it. And wanted to know what's the plan. So
and she's a first responder?
And she's a first responder, and she's not getting paid for additional hours. We wanted to know, what the plan is. Another one was, we're not going to be able to pay our rent on time. We're being impacted. Will we be charged the late fees? Of course not. We're not going to charge you a late fee. Things like that. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm working partial hours. Can I make partial payments? Of course you can make partial payments. We'll work with you on that. Just things like that. Everything's individualized, really.
Gina, I have a question. If I own a property and I've got residents, what are some of the government agencies that you would recommend residents know about? Like, for example, I was talking to one of our property managers in Dallas, and he was explaining to me that in Texas, we're in CDC region number 6. I did not even know that CDCs had regions. Yes. So then I started thinking, what other government agencies in this situation, or any, but this situation obviously in particular, should our residents know about and should have links or contacts so that we're getting not the news and opinion, but actual factual data that you would say, no, this one. Could you give us an idea?
I would definitely, CDC is number one. Sure. And then there are great links from there to your local areas.
Okay.
And then from there that they also have links. We're directing people primarily to the CDC. I'll have to get back to you with other links that we're sending people, but it's to their local areas specifically is where we're sending people.
I guess, like, for example, I'm thinking, and then let's maybe go out one layer. And I don't know if churches are helping people out with donations. Sometimes churches help people with rent. This is such a massive thing. Maybe they're not.
Churches, Red Cross. Yes, definitely. The Red Cross is helping. We also have Berkeley in California is also offering. The city of Berkeley is offering. Everything is very, like I was saying, it's so individual.
Some of it's micro.
Very localized.
So micro.
Yeah.
The Berkeley just raised $3 million rent relief fund.
Yep.
That other businesses are encouraged to contribute to. Mind is also putting together a rent relief fund. We're working with another charity. We're, hopefully going to be able to announce that soon. So yeah, there's a lot of micro stuff going on, Steve. Yeah. You're right. And we hope that we can instrument our situation room to be able to point people there.
Right.
But it's very difficult. Like, it's changing all the time. Like, I felt for Gina.
It's
You know,
so
what
hard to
are
like
some of the links?
given
You know,
to
today
you.
it's this, tomorrow it's that.
So well,
Yeah, and it's always growing, but it is very micro. There's not a national one that I could, besides the CDC, I would rather give them local links, because I think that they're going to be more successful in finding the information and the immediate help than they can find information nationally, but like for their immediate help, I would direct them to more local areas.
Well, let me ask you this, Gina. Maybe another question. What type of documentation do you think residents should have handy? Whether it's bank account information, birth certificates, health. I mean, what if you've never gone through this? You've never really probably thought that, hey, maybe I should have my passport handy if I have one, or what? What would you say? Do we have a list of what people should have handy? I've never really thought about it.
Yep, there is a list in the CDC, but I definitely have what you're saying: birth certificates, passport, all of your passwords. Believe it or not, because you could get shut out.
My Facebook password.
It's very important, Steve. But yeah, all of your passwords. Believe it or not, that is very important, because computer goes down. Bank accounts, credit cards. All of the things that you would need in an emergency situation, that if you lost them, you would be lost, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, think about your phone too. Emergency phone numbers, who you would contact, who is the person you would contact immediately, like the first three. Get them out of your phone and have them with you. Pet records are very important as well.
Pet records, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Pet records are very important. Children's shot records. Those are important, because you never know if your doctor may get ill, their office closes in a way that you're not able to get information. And then, yeah, of course, banking records is very important.
And you know, you had mentioned something earlier, which made me think about all this, is elderly. Let's say you have an elderly family member. What medication are they taking?
Medications, yes.
So I just think of that, like, what, you know, if all of a sudden they're gone and they've got to, you know, you're trying to figure out what medication they're on. You know, I don't even know if that all talks to each other from different pharmacies. I have no idea how that works, but again, just things that you don't normally think about that maybe you go, maybe I need to rethink these things. So I think there's going to be a lot of retooling as a result of this. And look, I think that, you know, I know for a fact every disaster I've been through, whether it was 9/11 or 2008 recession or hurricanes, it makes you stronger because it identifies the weak points. And it's kind of like it shows where things are weak and they can break. And those are things that we can get better at and rebuild. And I think that, unfortunately, there will be some dire situations with some people. And I think financially, there'll be some people that do get hurt that maybe were not living fiscally sound, and some of them are just a bad luck. You know, I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you didn't do anything wrong and it affected you, it goes to bad luck. But you could also look at this as saying, okay, what could I maybe do differently in the future so that I don't fall into the same trap, right? Because that's I think the lesson here. And I think more importantly is that I think it's important to remember that the residents are people, and they are going through a very hard emotional time that I think everybody needs to understand and realize that, you know, it's a tough time and nobody knows the answer. Nobody can say it's okay because nobody knows it is okay.
Absolutely. There's so much that we don't know. I mean, it's going to be completely different next week. It's going to be completely different in our business, in the world. One thing I did want to add on to what you were talking about, documentation. If you are impacted by COVID-19, it's really important. You lose your job, or maybe someone in your family gets it. It's really important to get that documentation. If you are laid off, or if you lose your job, or if you're furloughed, whatever it is, get that documentation from your employer, because you're going to need that for your landlord. You're going to need that for your credit card, your car payment. It'll be good to have that. Some people are going to ask you along the way how you were impacted. They're going to want you to provide documentation. We're seeing in a lot of these initiatives, moratoriums, bans, there's many names for it, for eviction, foreclosures, for whatever that is that they're going to be. And it's going to be that same way with credit cards. You're going to see it, utilities, all of those things that people are not going to be able to pay in the future. They're saying there's caveats to that. If you are impacted by COVID-19. You're seeing that in the verbiage, in all of these things. So with that will come documentation. So ensure that you have that documentation. And we're coming across a few people that don't have it. Their employers aren't giving it to them. So we're finding ways around that to help them, provide previous pay stubs right up to the day, of the national emergency. And it's pretty easy to see that what they were doing before, but make sure you get that and keep that.
So that's a fantastic tip, Gina. This is, you don't think about it. You get laid off, you pack your box or you take your shovel with you, whatever you do, take your poker chips, you go home.
Yeah.
But getting that documentation is so crucial, because when you call in, or if you're not receiving rent, if you're a landlord, right, if you call in your bank to work out and, some kind of a deal with them, they'll ask you for documentations that your tenant is not paying rent. And same thing for the job. I wanted
one
to
other
say,
thing on that. Sorry, one other thing.
Oh, please. Yeah.
We are having residents now that have COVID-19. We've had a few that have come up, and we're asking for the results of their test or documentation. However, not results of the test, but documentation that they do have it. Mm-hmm. It is good for you to tell your landlord if you have it. There's complete privacy. We do not share that with the landlord of the multi-site homes that you have it, but it is good because then we can clean all of the exterior of the areas of the home, of the apartment community. We will sterilize everything and clean everything for all of the other residents that live around you, because you are now quarantined and you're not leaving, but we want to make sure that everything's clean for them. So it's really important that you share that information, especially if you live in an apartment building specifically, so that they can take precautions for the other residents.
Yeah, information is power in this day and age. Yep. Steve, unless you have something else.
No, I think it's good. I just have you heard anything, Gina, regarding kind of, and this is a peppered question because I know we don't know it, but anything as far as the reverberating effects, like if it stopped today and tomorrow morning everything was okay, how long would this reverberate out for, would you guess? Would this be a 3-month, 6-month rattling? No,
I haven't heard anything, but for, just my take on being in the business for 27 years, I would say it would be 45 days probably for people to kind of catch up and then be able to get rent going and get back on track. I would think, probably.
And that'd be if we waved the magic wand today, stopped it, and everybody started
went back to work.
I
would say 30 to 45 days for people to get back on track. I mean, do you guys have a sense of that? You've been in the business, Steve.
I would have to say my gut would tell me probably more like 60 to 90 days.
Really?
Is my gut, only because, Alex and I had talked about this on another show, that once that momentum wheel stops, it's very hard to get that thing up and going again. I mean, it's like getting that water wheel or that train to keep going down the track after it stopped, to push it down. It's going to take a while, and it's not, a lot of these are not start stops. There's a lot of things that have to, the money has to trickle down from the consumers to the businesses to the employees. I think a lot of employees, when they go back to work, probably will not get paid right away unless they get a government agency, because they've got to make the money to be able to disperse the money. I think that it's going to be a lot longer than that, maybe 2 to 3 pay cycles of cyclical months is my guess. So maybe a quarter at best.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the, I can see 60. Yeah, 60.
But if you look, Steve, if you have that magic wand, please wave it. If not,
right?
In this day and age, when going to a grocery store is an adventure, I just want to say that we're committed here at Mind to make sure that we are off service, and we are going to do everything we can to get, those happy homes and healthy investments into a reality. It does not look very easy these days, but hey, that's how the company's being tested. And I'm honored to be joined by such a talented and incredible individuals in the company. And the two of us here, the three of us here are definitely the example. So Gina, thank you very much for your time. Steve, thanks a lot for co-hosting. And for those of you who are listening, hopefully this was helpful. And just so you know, we love you and we support you. We want to help as much as we can, and give us a call if you want to talk to Mind. Otherwise, see you on the next one.
See you, everyone. Thanks, Gina. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye, guys.